The Electoral College. However, the President is not elected by the popular vote, but through the Electoral College. This is the final stage of the process. In the vast majority of elections, the candidate who wins the popular vote also wins in the Electoral College. But in 2000, though Al Gore won the popular vote, George W. Bush won the Electoral College. Hence, he, rather than Gore, became president, but more of that anon. First of all, we need to understand how the Electoral College system works. How it works. In the Electoral College, each state is awarded a certain number of Electoral College votes. This number is equal to that state's representation in Congress. The number of senators, 2 for every state, plus the number of representatives. Thus, in 2012, California had 55, 2 plus 53, while Wyoming had just 3, 2 plus 1. There are 538 Electoral College votes. To win the presidency, a candidate must win an absolute majority, which is 270. The popular votes for each candidate are counted in each state. In all but 2 states, whichever candidate wins the most popular votes receives all the Electoral College votes of that state, the so-called winner-takes-all rule. This rule, however, is not in the Constitution. It is purely a convention that developed during the 19th century in most states. The exceptions are Maine and Nebraska. The Electoral College never meets together. Its members, called electors, meet in their respective state capitals on the Monday after the second Wednesday in December. They then send their results to the Vice President of the United States in Washington, D.C. The Vice President formally counts the Electoral College votes and announces the result to a joint session of Congress in early January. Thus, on 6 January 2001, Vice President Al Gore had the dubious privilege of announcing his own defeat at the hands of Governor George W. Bush of Texas by 271 Electoral College votes to 266. What if no candidate wins an absolute majority of Electoral College votes? This could happen either if a 269-269 split occurred between 2 candidates, or if more than 2 candidates won Electoral College votes. The former situation almost occurred in 2000. The latter situation might have occurred in 1968, when third-party candidate George Wallace won 5 seats with 45 Electoral College votes. Under such circumstances, the president would be elected by the House of Representatives from the 3 presidential candidates with the most Electoral College votes. Each state would have 1 vote. The winner would require an absolute majority, 26 of the 50 votes. Balloting would continue until 1 candidate emerged as the winner. Meanwhile, the vice president would be elected by the Senate from the 2 vice presidential candidates with the most Electoral College votes. Each senator would have a vote. The winner would require an absolute majority, 51 of the 100 votes. Again, balloting would continue until this occurred. Only twice has the Electoral College failed to come up with a winner and the election been thrown to Congress, in 1800 and 1824. Strengths of the Electoral College. It is not difficult to come up with criticisms of the Electoral College, but the Founding Fathers invented the system because of some presumed strengths, 2 of which are still of some relevance today. It preserves the voice of the small population states. The small population states, as in 1787, still worry that were the Electoral College to be abolished, the votes of their inhabitants would become almost worthless, swept aside by the sizes of such states as California, Texas, New York, and Florida. If this was a concern in 1787, it should be even more of a concern now. In the first presidential election held in 1788, of the 13 states that took part, the smallest had 3 Electoral College votes, while the largest, Virginia, had 12. That is 4 times as many, but in 2012, California had 55 Electoral College votes, more than 18 times as many as such states as Wyoming and Alaska, with just 3. It tends to promote a two-horse race. This is important in an election for the president, who is both chief executive and head of state, a symbol of national unity. In such a two-horse race, the winner will therefore tend to receive more than 50% of the popular vote, a definite aid to uniting the nation. In 26 of the 38 elections held between 1864 and 2012, that is, over two-thirds, the winner gained more than 50% of the popular vote. But 3 of the 12 elections in which this did not occur were 1992, 1996, and 2000. Weaknesses of the Electoral College. An institution devised over 200 years ago still nominally elects the President of the United States. Many critics see it as beset with problems and potential malfunctions. Here are 5 criticisms made of the Electoral College. Small states are overrepresented. By 2012, California had 55 Electoral College votes, representing its 37 million inhabitants. Wyoming had 3, representing its 500,000 inhabitants. Thus, California receives 1 Electoral College vote for every 675,000 people. Wyoming receives 1 Electoral College vote for every 185,000 people. Put another way, if California were to receive Electoral College votes on the same basis as Wyoming, it would not have 55 Electoral College votes, but 200. Winner-takes-all system distorts the result. In 1996, Bill Clinton won only 49% of the popular vote, yet he won just over 70% of the Electoral College votes. In the 11 elections between 1972 and 2012, the Electoral College could be said to have seriously distorted the result on 8 occasions. Although this distortion did not occur in the 2000 and 2004 elections, the phenomenon returned in both 2008 and 2012. In 2012, Obama's 51% of the popular vote was translated into 61.7% of the Electoral College vote. It is also possible for the candidate who wins the popular vote to lose the Electoral College vote. This is what occurred in 2000. Al Gore won 48.4% of the popular vote to George W. Bush's 48%. But in the Electoral College, Bush came out the winner by 271 votes to 266. This was the 3rd occasion in the nation's history that this had occurred, the 2 other occasions being 1876 and 1888. It almost occurred in both 1960 and 1968. In 1960, Nixon was only 0.3% behind Kennedy in the popular vote, yet lost in the Electoral College by 303 to 2019. In 1968, Humphrey was only 0.5% behind Nixon in the popular vote, yet lost in the Electoral College by 301 to 191. Unfair to national third parties. In 1980, Congressman John Anderson, running as an independent, won 6.6% of the popular vote. In 1992, another independent candidate, Ross Perot, won 18.9% of the popular vote. In 1966, as the Reform Party candidate Perot won 8.5% of the popular vote. In 2000, Green Party candidate Ralph Nader won over 3 million votes. None of these candidates won a single Electoral College vote. Take Perot in 1992. In only one state, Mississippi, did he fail to gain at least 10% of the popular vote, yet in only one state, Maine, did he succeed in getting over 30% of the popular vote. Regional third-party candidates fare better. In 1968, American Independent Party candidate George Wallace won 13.5% of the popular vote. considerably less than Perot's 1992 figure. Yet, because his support was concentrated in the Deep South, he managed to win 5 states with 45 Electoral College votes. Rogue electors. Many states have state laws requiring electors to cast their ballots for the statewide popular vote winner, but others do not, leaving open the possibility that so-called rogue or faithless electors will cast their ballots some other way. 7 of the 13 presidential elections since 1960 have seen this occur. In 2000, a Washington, D.C. elector refused to cast her Electoral College vote for Al Gore in protest at the city's lack of congressional representation. She left her ballot blank. Even more oddly, in 2004, a Minnesota elector voted for John Edwards for president, though spelling his name incorrectly as John Ewards, but none of the 10 Minnesota electors admitted voting for Edwards for president instead of John Kerry. All 10 electors then voted for Edwards for vice president. This was the first time an elector had knowingly or unknowingly voted for the same candidate for both offices. When the Electoral College voted on Monday, 15th December 2008, there were no rogue votes at all, with Barack Obama receiving 365 electoral votes and 173 for McCain. President and Vice President of different parties. At the beginning of the Republic, when political parties in the way they are understood today did not truly exist, it did not matter if the President and Vice President were of different parties, as a result of the system used in the case of Electoral College deadlock. In 2000, however, it was certainly possible that the House of Representatives could have chosen Republican George W. Bush as president, and the Senate could have chosen Democrat Joseph Lieberman as vice president.